I tell everyone, sit back, take a deep breath, do not retaliate, do not retaliate. The president will be here tomorrow, and he will get his message across. I believe he is going to have meetings, and again, also have an open mind that, you know, why this rapid response in terms of, you know, this is a no. When I talk to tech executives, they will tell me it is easier doing business in China than the EU.
Wow.
That's not a great stat.
Secretary, let me begin on trade and tariffs, because President Trump seemed to set the tone of conversation even before he has arrived by threatening tariffs on our European allies until they support his plans to acquire Greenland. How do you justify taking over a country when, in fact, Denmark and Greenland have said they are not interested?
Well, Maria, I think the president has a very strong view on Western Hemispheric security and believes that the U.S. should not outsource our national security. He believes that Greenland is essential for the Golden Dome missile shield. And he also, you know, the president, as usual, it's the move after the move that as part of NATO, I think the president is worried that if there were an incursion into Greenland, the U.S. would be called upon to defend Greenland. Greenland's becoming more and more attractive for foreign conquest, and he very strongly believes that it must be part of the United States to prevent a conflict rather than getting the U.S. engaged ex post into a hot conflict.
So Greenland is not expected to be able to have the capacity to stop any potential missiles that could hit the United States. In other words, Greenland without U.S. ownership makes the United States vulnerable. Is that the president's main complaint?
Well, I think it's that, and that the U.S., there's the opportunity for the U.S. to become embroiled ex post into a kinetic war if another country moved in on Greenland, and no country is going to assert control of Greenland if the U.S. controls Greenland.
Secretary, what do you want to say about the response here? I mean, the European Union is pushing back, saying we are not going to complete our trade deal with the United States because of this. They have already called an emergency summit for later on in the week about this Greenland situation.
Well, I would say exactly what I said after Liberation Day last April, when the president imposed tariff levels on the whole world. I tell everyone, sit back, take a deep breath, do not retaliate, do not retaliate. The president will be here tomorrow, and he will get his message across. I believe he is going to have meetings, and again, also have an open mind that, you know, why this rapid response in terms of, you know, this is a no. And by the way, Maria, this has been in the minds of American presidents for more than 150 years, for more than 150 years.
So the vulnerability was seen even back then?
Well, or the strategic value of Greenland. And I think as there are more trade routes that move near Greenland, Greenland becomes more and more valuable.
Secretary, we're already seeing a reaction from markets. You've got rates spiking in the United States, up 7 basis points on the 10-year right now. You've got rates spiking in Japan. What do you want to say about this market reaction that we're seeing?
Well, Maria, I think it's very difficult to disaggregate the market reaction from what's going on endogenously in Japan. So Japan, over the past 2 days, has had a 6 standard deviation move in their bond market. That would be what has happened in the Japanese JGB 10-year would be the equivalent of a 50 basis point move in U.S. 10. So I think it's very difficult to disaggregate what the spillover from Japan is. I've been in touch with my economic counterparts in Japan, and I am sure that they will begin saying the things that will calm the market down.
So what are the plans for tariffs on Europe then?
Well, we're in the midst of completing a very good trade deal for both sides. So The plan is to go ahead with the trade deal. Of course, the president has said that he, on February 1st, will implement a 10% tariff if the Danes do not want to give up Greenland, and it is on the 8 countries that sent troops to Greenland.
So what do you want to say about the NATO alliance then? I mean, Denmark has been a long ally, the European Union united against any move. How do you progress with what looks like a strategic move for the United States, but also preserve the alliance, the NATO alliance?
Well, look, I think that the NATO alliance is very safe, sound, and thanks to President Trump, it's never been more secure. When President Trump came in his first term, the European countries and Canada were not meeting their spending quotas as a percent of GDP. Now they are. They got a lot of catch up to do. And Maria, to put it in perspective, the United States of America since 1980 has contributed $22 trillion more dollars, or spent $22 trillion more dollars on defense than all of NATO. So roughly the same size population, and we have spent $22 trillion more. That is 2/3 of our outstanding government debt. The Europeans have been spending the money on social welfare, on roads, on education, and it's time for them to pay more, which they've agreed to do.
Yeah, many of them have already stepped up, like Poland.
Everyone has except Spain.
Okay. And do you not feel that a security deal in the Arctic would suffice in terms of Greenland?
Well, I think what we're seeing, we're seeing with a base that we have shared with the UK for many years, the UK is signing the island over to Mauritius. So again, I can see why the president believes that for U.S. engagement, we do not want another Diego Garcia on our hands.
This is a very important point that you make. In terms of tariffs, how much money has been generated from tariffs already? Certainly the hysteria over President Trump's tariffs has died down since April of last year. What is the total running rate right now?
Yeah, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, Maria. The U.S. for the fiscal year, which ends September 30th, we had a fiscal contraction. For the calendar year, we had a very large fiscal contraction. So we cut the deficit by about $200 billion. The important number is the deficit to GDP. So calendar year 2024 was 6.9%, the highest we've ever had. I mean, we inherited a mess. 6.9%, the highest we've ever had when the U.S. was not at war or not in a recession. So 6.9%, calendar year 2025, 5.4%. I have called for getting that number down to 3% by the end of President Trump's term, and I think we're on the way.
So you've been using that tariff money to pay down the deficit then?
It feeds into the general account, and it's been a big part of it. And again, last year, the U.S. 10-year bond was down about 40 basis points. I believe France was up about 40 or 50, Germany was up 50 or 60. U.S. bond market had its best performing year since 2020. And again, back to your point that after Liberation Day, April, May, it's the end of the world. The world's going to sell U.S. assets. Just the opposite happened is, as Treasury Secretary, I can see who the buyers are of our bonds. And we had more foreign participation than ever.
What do you want to say about sanctions, something else you've been working on, of course? What are you planning there in terms of Iran and the impact there? Do sanctions actually work? And the same question with regard to 500% secondary sanctions or tariffs on countries who purchase energy products from Russia.
Okay, so two things there. There are Treasury sanctions. And if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believe the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked. Because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports, and this is why the people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired, and things are moving in a very positive way here. On the 500% tariffs on the buyers of Russian oil, that is a proposal that Senator Graham has in front of the Senate, and we will see whether that passes. We don't believe that President Trump needs that authority, that he can do it under IEEPA, but that the Senate wants to give him that authority. And just to be clear, that we have Europe buying Russian oil still 4 years later, they are financing the war against themselves. India started buying Russian oil after the conflict began, but President Trump put a 25% tariff on them, and India has geared down and has stopped buying Russian oil. And then 3, China is a very large buyer of Russian oil, as they are of Iranian oil, as they were of Venezuelan oil. But guess what, Maria? No more Venezuelan oil for them.
So would you treat China the same as the others in terms of buying Russian oil with regard to tariffs and sanctions?
Well, we'll see what happens with this Senate bill, and with the Iranian oil, that'll be up to President Trump.
Secretary, what do you want to say about artificial intelligence and the idea that AI efficiencies will likely kill jobs? A lot of people are worried about jobs. Do we have a plan in the U.S. government right now in terms of job creation in the face of AI efficiency killing jobs?
Well, Maria, we are seeing the record factory groundbreakings. That's why President Trump wants to bring back these precision jobs to the U.S. And historically, every productivity boom has led to job growth. Now, can there be some toing and froing in terms of people changing professions? I can't remember what the number is. Maybe you know it. 50, 60% of the professions today didn't exist 30 years ago.
Well,
So
it's a big number. Technology.
It's a big number, but it's something we're very cognizant of. We haven't seen it in the numbers yet. I think that it could be very different than what we saw with the China shock. The China shock was a blue-collar phenomenon. My guess is the AI shock might be a white-collar phenomenon. We'll see.
Secretary, as we wrap up here, a moment ago you said, look, you've been dealing with markets for a long time, your entire career. What do you think of markets today? I mean, the market has been rallying on the president's policy. Today, of course, we're seeing a sell-off, but do you think the markets are getting it right in terms of rallying on the president's policies going into this Davos meeting?
I try not to the extent I had success in the markets, it was not making short-term predictions. But I can tell you what has been very heartening for me. I don't have time to follow the markets as closely, but to the extent last year before, everyone said, oh, this is just Mag 7 stocks, it's not healthy. We've seen a big broadening out in the market. The Russell index, the smaller cap stocks, has outperformed. The S&P equal weight has outperformed. And I actually think that speaks to the economic recovery. We're seeing it across all sectors. Our friend Ed Hyman at ISI does these corporate surveys. Corporate surveys are the highest that they've been since June 22. And I think you're starting to see it in all sectors of the market. And the market follows the economy. And again, I just think that we have the best place in the world. Come, build your factory, you have tax certainty, you have regulatory certainty, and you have energy certainty.
And of course, deregulation. And that was one point that I wanted to make before we wrap up here, that Mario Draghi wrote a report 2 years ago about regulation in Europe, and the fact that the largest market cap company in Europe is Novo Nordisk because of Ozempic, about $400 billion or so. And we just saw NVIDIA in the United States hit $5 trillion.
Well, clearly, Maria, the innovation, the change, and the ability to adapt is in the U.S. The U.S. is the innovation capital of the world. I don't think anything's going to change that. I was just asked in another meeting by some business leaders, what advice would you give to Europe? And I said I would operationalize the Draghi report, because the EU was supposed to cut down on red tape, but it is logarithmically increased it. When I talk to tech executives, they will tell me it is easier doing business in China than the EU.
Wow.
That's not a great stat. I had a European businessman come to see me the other day. And he said, Secretary Bessent, it took me 3 days to get an appointment with the White House and with you. It took me 90 days to get an appointment with Ursula von der Leyen, and we are one of the largest employers in Europe. So there's just a different mindset here, and I think the mindset has got to change. It's got to change to a growth mentality, and that's President Trump's invitation is we are growing, we're deregulating, and come and join us. The U.S. is going to host the G20 meeting next year, and on the finance track, we have identified the greatest financial risk as a lack of growth, because post-COVID, every government balance sheet has ballooned, and we have this gigantic government debt. There are two ways. You can either cut your way out of it through austerity, no voter wants that, or you can grow your way out of it. So we are inviting the world, come grow with us, prosper with us, and we can all do it together.